I would say good morning, but it's actually the afternoon already. So thanks everyone for being here. I know you have a choice of sessions, so I really do appreciate you being here with me. The session we're going to be looking at today is one I've developed over the last 6 months, I would say. It started based on a rumor that I had heard. And typically, rumors are not something that we want to act upon, but initially I had heard a rumor from a colleague in Alberta about a lifeguard who was seriously injured at a workplace incident. And it took about 2 years to hear that, in fact, this rumor was 100% true. A lifeguard was very seriously injured on the job. A few months later, I heard of a lifeguard fatality on the job. And so this session has come out of that presentation and reading all of these different articles online and really spending some time to look at what we should be talking about in our industry, because in my opinion, there is a bigger problem that is kind of behind the scenes, and we're maybe not recognizing the gravity of the situation. So we're going to go through a bunch of case studies. These are all real-life cases that have occurred in the last 5 years in North America, either in Canada or the US. I have focused exclusively on major medical emergencies as well as fatalities. I have not taken any international lifeguard situations, so these are just in Canada and the US. These are just in swimming pools, so there is no surf, no open water. This is exclusively indoor pools, and in one case, an outdoor pool that we're going to be looking at. The focus of this session is unfortunately really depressing, and so I just want to get that out of the way. It's really upsetting, some of these cases that they happened, but I also want to be very clear that we are going to be victim-focused in our discussions. It's not my desire to, true crime has kind of run away with a lot of stories that we've seen in the news and Netflix documentaries. And so I really want to be respectful as we talk through these cases, but it's really important that we spend some time understanding what happened and what we can then take away for managing our aquatic facilities, okay? All of the resources I'm going to be sharing are available on our website. So at the end of the session, there is a QR code where you'll be able to access all of the articles, all of the documents that I got through public disclosure, all of the resources that I got from behind paywalls. I've made those available to you, so you don't have to worry about writing everything down. I also spent a lot of time with newspaper articles, downloaded those, so everything will be available on the website, okay? So with that in mind, I also want to apologize in advance. I didn't realize the screen would be quite this small, so you're going to notice that the slides have quite a dense amount of information, because I thought it was important that you have as much detail as possible about the circumstances that we're going to be looking at. Additionally, as much as I can be, it's factual based on public reporting, documentation requests, statements by the families or colleagues. If there is something that is my opinion or conjecture or speculation, I will let you know that that is my opinion. We don't know for sure. There are definitely gaps in documentation, gaps where organizations, including employers, do not want us to know exactly what happened. And so just to be clear, I'm trying to be as factual as possible, but we are going to do a little bit of interpretation in terms of takeaways that we may want to have as Canadians in the aquatic industry. So just a quick bit about me, because some people have negative experiences when they hear the word consultant. I am still a lifeguard. I'm still a trainer with the Life Saving Society. I still actively teach courses. But about 5 or 6 years ago, I kept getting all these calls as a pool manager. People would ask me, what temperature should I keep my pool at? Or what sort of things should I do if council disagrees with the direction that we're taking the pool? And so I sort of started doing a lot of this hand-holding. And at one point, my husband said, you're doing this all the time, evenings, weekends, holidays, flexing your hours to help other people. You really should start your own business. And so that's what I started doing full-time about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And so I really hope that consultant doesn't have to be a bad word. It is very much saying, aquatics is unique, and we have special challenges that not always are understood by recreation or the dry people or the rest of the department or community services. Welcome to those of you who are not the poolies quite yet. We will bring you in, but essentially there is some unique challenges members for aquatics that deserve their own focus in terms of what I do day to day and being able to do a presentation like this. I think there's a lot we can be doing in the industry, and unfortunately, we are all short on time and resources. So one of the things I want to mention from the get-go, and I apologize if it's a little bit hard to see the font, but essentially, I am no better than any of you. I was a pool supervisor, and people got hurt at work when I was a pool supervisor. There were slips, trips, and falls. There were chemical burns. There were people getting scratched during swimming lessons that might have developed into an infection. I had people who were injured by their swimmers while teaching swimming lessons. I had people get concussions during NL research, dislocated shoulders doing bad lifts during NL class, kids fooling around with spine boards, right? I am in the same shoes that a lot of you are in. We have young employees, a wet, hot, humid environment, heavy lifting, a physically demanding job, leading to things like dehydration, fainting, right? I don't want this session to be focused on saying, well, that municipality did all of these things wrong. The rest of us would never be in that situation. The reality is, as we are short-staffed, we especially need to be having these conversations with our leadership and our management that the situation is not improving and could lead to a fatality or a serious injury. And that is really the focus of this session, is saying, look, there are these cases out there that we need to be aware of, because what's stopping our organization from having this type of incident? I did a quick call out on Instagram stories. So I'm pretty active on social media within the aquatics field, and I got over 40 responses within 24 hours of other types of injuries that people shared with me that have happened on the job. Everything ranging from bulkhead injuries to falling light bulbs, to hitting your head on a locker, to things falling off of shelves, pallets collapsing. You guys have all seen this, right? But the focus of this session is not on any of that. We can already acknowledge that is a problem. Come on in. Oh, okay. Well, come in anyway. So the focus of this session is not those smaller, I use air quote because these can be substantial injuries, but we are going to be looking at more extreme cases. I would just say, though, what is stopping any of these smaller injuries from being a more extreme case? This is a lot of the food for thought and the strategies we're going to talk about at the end of the session. So with our case study approach, we're going to look at 3 cases in significant detail and 2 smaller cases more briefly. We're going to take your typical social studies approach of who, what, where, when, why, and how. And the resources that I'm going to be using are, first and foremost, I did do public information requests. So when it was a municipality, I made a public information request, I paid a fee, I filled out a form, I followed up with them a lot to get as much information as possible. In some cases, I didn't get as much information as I think I should have or as I had hoped, so we may have to fill in the gaps with some news articles. At the end of this session, we're going to look at some strategies that you can take away to take this knowledge and implement changes at your facility. So the first case is Picture Butte, Alberta. So I live just outside of Calgary in a town called Okotoks. It's a community of about 35,000 people. Picture Butte, Alberta is located south of me and north of Lethbridge, community of about 2,000. And this was the rumor that was in fact true. So in July of 2020, an unidentified female lifeguard fell into an empty swimming pool, into the deep end, fell 3 meters in depth at the Corps of Enray Aquatic Center. She landed face down, and she was life-flighted from the Lethbridge Hospital to Calgary Foothills. We don't know her name, we don't know how long she was in hospital, but it was significant enough that she was life-flighted from one hospital to another. Some other details we're going to get into with our primary sources. This was the employee's first day on the job. This was within the first 4 hours of her employment. She was working with one other person who was described as the head lifeguard. The pool was built in 2019, so this was only the 2nd year that the pool was open. And if you think back to the pandemic, which a lot of us have blocked out, in Alberta, what essentially happened was we had our COVID lockdowns in March, April, May, June. None of us thought we were going to have pools for the summer. Then the provincial government said, no, pools can open. And then all the municipalities and organizations weren't ready for the summer. And we rushed to open our pools to get a few months of the summer. So this lifeguard was offered a job on June 26th, accepted her job on June 30th, and started work on July 16th, but the pool was not yet full of water. One of the other things we're going to look at is this was allegedly while she was cleaning the handrail on the 1 meter diving board, right? Keep in mind, the pool was not in use yet. Nobody was touching the handrails. So this is the pool in Picture Butte, Alberta. This is a slide with its own runout. There is a kind of squiggly, shallow play area over here, and then several lanes, 25 meters in length. The arrow is showing us where the diving board is located, and we do know from the charges from the province that this pool was at least 3 meters in the deep end, excuse me. So at least 3 meters here, the lifeguard fell down into the pool. And then from the redacted incident report from the lifeguard, we were cleaning the railings by the pool and going to clean beside the diving board when redacted lifeguard lost her grip and fell into the pool. So what were they supposed to be doing that day? This was her first day on the job. In an email from Public Disclosure that came 5 days after the incident, the operational supervisor, whose name is also redacted, stated that the tasks for that first day on the job were an initial orientation, right, because she's a new hire, including filling out the new hire package, a facility tour, reading through the requirements of facilities during COVID, and then some light housekeeping tasks, including sweeping, mopping, cleaning windows, wiping down high-touch areas, counters, benches, and railings, right? So as best as we can tell, there was no new hire orientation, there was no job task list for the day. Also, when we get into the complaint by the province in terms of the charges, there was no safe work procedures, there was no hazard assessments, there was no fall hazard training. This is one of the other public disclosure documents I received from the town of Picture Butte, and I want to stress that everything I'm reading is from the form, okay? So what was the direct cause which led to the incident? Inattention of junior lifeguard, okay? That's their comments, not mine. What was the indirect cause of the incident which led to the outcome? A lack of physical safety control, instruction orientation from the head guard around the empty pool without first orienting to hazards of working around an empty pool. And then what was the root cause, the direct or indirect causes which caused it to occur? Lifeguards were hired before the pool was ready for water. No hazard assessments, no safe work procedures were developed or provided by the town to the lifeguard staff. We've all been there, right? Let's find something for the guards to do. They're here, they're scheduled, I don't want to send them home. What can I have them do? Cleaning. Let's have them do cleaning, right? And then cleaning goes wrong. So the town of Picture Butte was charged $87,000 for this incident. $30,000 went to an AMSA campaign. So AMSA is our Alberta Municipal Health and Safety Association. They took this money and they developed a bunch of resources to prevent against fall hazards, to educate the aquatic industry specifically about these types of injuries. And those are all available online, and they will be linked in the presentation website. So you can go and get really nice posters. You can get topics for your next toolbox meeting, your next in-service. And they also talk about the need to protect the fall hazard, right? Install fencing, thinking about barricades, thinking about training. The town of Picture Butte also had to pay $57,000 to STARS Ambulance, which is our helicopter ambulance service. And it is my opinion, unsubstantiated, that this is to pay back for the workplace incident, right, that they had to transport her from Lethbridge to Calgary Foothills. $87,000 sounds pretty good. I want you to keep that number in mind when we get to some of the fatalities. This is actually a bigger number than some of the fatalities we're going to see. Okay, so what are our key takeaways from this, right? So it's pretty easy to say, okay, she was young, she was unsupervised. It's not very charitable, but what are some of the things that people will say? Maybe it was her first job. There are a lot of things that are the employer's responsibility in a situation like this, right? Pool basin had no barriers while empty, right? I know when I started lifeguarding in 2003 at the University of Toronto, we had no barriers around a 50-meter pool that had a 5-meter deep end. Like, I will say that because lots of pools still don't put up barriers. This is my local community pool in Okotoks, and they are militant about covering the pool until it's fully full. So there was no fall protection training, no new hire orientation checklists. The question mark is kind of me thinking aloud, not necessarily substantiated. There does not appear to be a clearly defined task list for that day. There definitely were no safe work procedures. We don't know exactly where the head guard was located in that whole area. Perhaps they were in the bathroom. Perhaps they were eating lunch. This happened between 12 and 1. Perhaps they were out sweeping the parking lot. We don't know how much supervision was available. Were they working alone over lunch hour? We don't know the employee's exact age, but I can tell you, having worked in small rural farming communities, it is likely, in my opinion, that they were just 16. Right? That they were 16 and a half, maybe 17. This is a very popular outdoor job in small rural communities in Alberta. Was it necessary to clean the handrails, right? This is one of those cleaning tasks. We've all been guilty of assigning cleaning tasks or admin tasks because we don't want staff to be doing nothing on shift. But what are the consequences when something is not fully thought through or perhaps ill-considered? Okay. So that's the first one. The second one we're going to look at in terms of cases, these all happened within the last 5 years. This one is very recent. This one is Jazmin Jefferson. She was mentioned in the description of this session. So Jazmin Jefferson was working November 29th of 2023, so about 10 months ago. She was working at the Roosevelt Aquatic Center. She had a medical emergency. So she was on the lifeguard chair. She fell unconscious. She was in the pool submerged. The reports indicate 7 to 10 minutes, but they're not willing to disclose the video footage. So she could have been underwater for much longer. We don't know for sure. There's nothing to substantiate, unfortunately, that was only 7 to 10 minutes. So the Roosevelt Aquatic Center is a pool that is built on the compound of a high school in Washington, D.C. In the United States, it is not uncommon for a large pool to be built with a high school and then operated as a partnership. So this pool is owned by D.C. Public School Board, but it is operated by Washington, D.C. Parks and Recreation. Any of you who've been in partnerships, you know how messy that can be in terms of, yes, we get money, but then who's responsible for cleaning, who's responsible for maintenance. There's a lot of sort of finger pointing if the agreement is not properly worked out. The time of Jazmin's death or this incident is really suspect. So in the media reports, it's reported that she died, that she was injured. She was on life support for 3 weeks before her parents took her off life support and she died. So she experienced an extended period of submersion. She extended a brain injury. The time of day that it happened, though, is in dispute. The media reports state 7 p.m. without any source as to where that came from. In my public records request, I was sent a booking permit for 3 to 4 p.m. That's the only thing I received that indicates time. And you'll see if you download the public documents I have on our website, I requested the activity in progress during the time of this incident. So I personally think it happened between that booking of 3:45 to 4:45. Some other things that are different about Jazmin from the previous incident in Picture Butte. Jazmin was actually a very experienced lifeguard. She worked for over 3 years at 4 different aquatic facilities in the Washington, D.C. area. She was also working full-time, so she was accumulating a lot of hours as a guard working at this facility. We're going to see the question of whether, was she a lifeguard? Was she a pool manager? That is another question that's going to come up in just a minute. She allegedly was lifeguarding with 2 other employees at the time, one of whom retrieved her from the pool and conducted CPR. As part of my research, I should say I did not make any effort to contact family or colleagues or the organizations beyond their Freedom of Information request form. So that information may be out there, like on the back pages of Reddit or Facebook, but I wanted to keep it as clean as possible and respectful to what is available. So when I did a Freedom of Information request for Washington, D.C., they denied most of it. And they denied most of it on the basis that they are currently involved in litigation, I'm guessing with the family. And they also stated that it would be considered extremely private for any identifying information or the video footage to be provided to me. I find it really interesting. Her family wants information to come out. They disclose this photo in the media. They want people to know that their daughter was very seriously injured and died. But the organization says that it would be a violation of her privacy to disclose exactly what happened. So this case is going to have a little bit more speculation because there is not a lot of data out there. There is one particular journalist in DC who's done a lot of articles, but we don't have all the facts. So this is the Roosevelt Aquatic Center at the high school. It appears to be a 25-yard pool, lap pool. The arrows indicate the position of the lifeguard chairs at the time these photos were taken, which is 2 years ago. So we don't have any basis for knowing where the lifeguard chairs were located at the time of her incident. We also have no idea from public disclosure where her body was recovered from. We also have no understanding about what, if anything, in my opinion, was going on in the pool. These are off of social media. It was very hard to find photos of this pool. So the one thing I do want to point out, next to the red shirt, there is a door and a window. So that is the only appearance that I can see of a pool office. I don't know if that's the pool office. I don't know where off-duty guards would be seated, but allegedly she was not working alone. Allegedly she was working with at least one other person, and she was guarding the pool during a period of time, whether that was at 7 o'clock or during swim team practice from 3:45 to 4:45. So on this page, I have compiled the individual accounts of what happened. A lot of the claims here can't be substantiated. They are from the family or they are from unsourced, unsighted colleagues who did not want to speak on the record. The father alleges that there were 2 other employees working. One was struggling with the mechanical. One was up at the customer service desk. I don't know how many high school pools have a customer service desk. I genuinely don't know. The father claimed that the DPR refers to the Department of Parks and Recreation. The father claimed that the city had a penchant for opening pools without 3 lifeguards on duty. So were there lifeguards missing? Who knows? There are questions about the whereabouts of the other lifeguards during the nearly 10 minutes his daughter was in the pool by herself. Unsubstantiated. The time is not confirmed how long it was, but it was long enough to give her a major brain injury. There is the allegation by the journalist who did some research that lifeguards would migrate from site to site, and so maybe the lifeguards at this pool on this particular day were not used to working at this particular pool, were unfamiliar with this particular site. There is an allegation from an anonymous lifeguard that lifeguards never had breaks, right? We all never have breaks half the time. They're not scheduled into the day or there's not enough staff to cover. And it was only if upper management came down during their lunch hour to relieve them of their duties that they got a break. One of the things that is very concerning is this was the 4th submersion drowning fatality in a DC pool in 2023, where they were discovered the body was at the bottom of the pool. Not the first, this was the fourth. Okay, the other ones were at other pools, but essentially it does lead to claims made later regarding standards, onboarding, in-service, what was the competency of lifeguards, right? One of the sessions later this conference is it's hard to get lifeguards. Never mind, are they competent? They have a warm skin and a breathing, they're breathing, they have a pulse. But what kind of concerns does that create if you have 4 fatalities at a pool in an urban area in 1 calendar year? For comparison, in Edmonton, Alberta, we had 4 drownings like this over the span of several months, about 10 years ago. And it was a stop the presses. Council of the City of Edmonton started allocating a lot more resources because it was a big concern. So this is the question I have regarding her position. So Jazmin is reported in the media as a lifeguard. That is how she is described. In the public records request, I asked for the job title and job description of Jazmin, and this is what I was sent. I was sent that she is the assistant pool manager. She is acting with full authority over the working facility. She represents the program manager. She provides guidance and leadership, and she oversees the facility engineer and custodial crews. So was she the pool supervisor on that day? Was she filling in for lifeguards on their break? Was she guarding because they were short-staffed? We don't know. But this is the job title I was sent by the city, and it's not a lifeguard per se. To further substantiate this, her dad states that she was so excited to get this contract, like full-time position, she bought ballet tickets, right? That's not minimum wage lifeguard buying ballet tickets. It's probably somebody who's got a nice new job. So what are some key findings from this one, right? Was she working alone? Were they short-staffed? We genuinely don't know. The key things that we do know, her colleagues did not notice her submersion for long enough that she experienced a major brain injury. Whether it was 4 minutes, 12 minutes, she was substantially submerged. She was working out of view or earshot of her colleagues. There were other colleagues, but we're not sure where in the building, what types of communication they had. Was she an assistant supervisor that day? How much do we exclude supervisory or management staff from our safety plans? Do we even consider them in when we design these safety plans, right? We don't think of the supervisors getting hurt. Family alleges that maybe they opened short-staffed. And then a question I have, which is pure speculation, did the swim club not even show up for practice? And so nobody was watching the pool for an extended period of time. Nobody checked in on Jazmin. So I looked up the DC school board calendar. The red X on November 29th is when Jazmin had her submersion. The turkey the week before is US Thanksgiving. There was a school break on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. How many of us have been at the pool when somebody forgot about their booking or canceled their booking late or showed up, they forgot that there was practice? So part of me wonders if there was nobody who showed up for practice that day. She was hanging out in the lifeguard chair, guarding the pool in case swimmers showed up, but then nobody was in the pool. And so her colleagues were off doing other things, taking a lunch break, doing operational tasks for 30, 40 minutes without checking on her. We don't have the video footage. There is a video, but it's not been released and nobody's been granted it. Okay. 2 brief cases I want to mention that are similar. Then we're going to look at one last case and take away some strategies and answer some questions. So if you are interested in this sort of thing, I probably did 20, 30 hours on the Occupational Health and Safety website in the US. You can dig up inspections, you can dig up violations, you can dig up all these court cases. And so here's 2 more incidences of lifeguards dying in the last 5 years under similar circumstances. But I could not find data for these cases on the internet. Could not find newspaper reports, could not find obituaries. It is tamped down. So this one occurred in Sarasota, Florida in 2018, July 20th. At 5 p.m., an employee was seated underneath an umbrella, so this is an outdoor pool setting, conducting lifeguard duty by the pool when she had a seizure. The employee fell from her chair and into the pool and drowned. This was a fatality, 21-year-old female. Okay, this was at the Sarasota Yacht Club. My experience working with American pools, a lot of them will hire one lifeguard to cover 8 or 9 hours on their own. I don't know if that was the case in this facility, but that is the way a lot of organizations like condos, HOAs will save money, right? So submerged, nobody came to get her and she died. Similar situation. This one is a little bit more confusing, and so I question elements of the report because it's not clear for us. This one occurred in 2017, July, almost to the same day in Maryland. Community pool service. So this was a homeowners association pool, outdoor pool. At 4:45 p.m., an employee was working as a lifeguard at the swimming pool. The employee clocked in for work at 11:30, right? So this was 5 hours into their shift. The employee was working alone. Witnesses saw the employee jump into the pool but never surface. Based on the post-mortem exam, the employee died from drowning due to primarily natural causes. So that one is kind of hard to unpack. Like, why would the lifeguard go in and not come out? What was going on? We don't know the details. But again, they were working alone and they had a medical emergency in the pool and they were not retrieved and they died. Right? This was a male. This was 25. He was 25 years old. So the last one we're going to look at in detail is the worst one, unfortunately. This one occurred in 2022, so 2.5 years ago, or 2 years ago now. Megan Wertz was scrubbing algae at the bottom of a pool. She had weights strapped onto her body as directed by her employer, and she died. She was taken to hospital, but she was pronounced dead on arrival. This one definitely is the most upsetting. This one was in Deming, New Mexico. 3 lifeguards were working that day. 2 left to go back to school to a meeting, right? So, hey, I'm going to go to a meeting and I'll come back in the afternoon. By all accounts, in her obituary and in family reporting, Megan was a very dedicated employee, a wonderful person, a go-getter, the type of person to, do work while at work. She was in the lap pool, and the pool opened for the summer, May 24th, so 2 months before. It was completely covered in algae. They were scrubbing with brushes because they did not have a pole with a brush. And the pool was closed during the previous 2 summers of the pandemic. Megan, it appears that she was in and around the water her whole life. She was a competitive swimmer. She loved the water. She grew up at the pool, always wanted to be a lifeguard, loved working with kids. Like, just an unimaginable tragedy. This is the photo from the day that Megan died. This is part of the Occupational Health and Safety report. It's not a high quality photo, but what I can tell you is that it is green water, right? It's covered in algae. I would imagine, this is my speculation, the bottom was slippery, it was cloudy, they were scrubbing frantically during some off time to try and get the water going again. She was found in the bottom of the deep end, which was 13 feet, so over 3 meters. She was working with a colleague, but that colleague was not in the same basin. They were working in another basin. So they were working independently because there were multiple basins in this outdoor pool area. This is one of the disclosure reports I received. The pool was overwhelmed with algae. That's why she was cleaning. Gets even worse when you see that these barbells or these plates were in the pool area for an extended period of time and reportedly used for multiple years to assist guards with staying down to scrub algae multiple times. So it'll be hard to see from your distance, but I've compiled the different reports. The OSHA report being the most factual, in my opinion. At 12 p.m. on July 15th of 2022, an employee was cleaning the bottom surface of a pool. The employee was using weights to help hold herself to the bottom. The employer trained the employees to tie or strap weights to themselves as anchors while cleaning the bottom surface of the pool. While using the equipment, the employee drowned. Her colleague who attempted to rescue her said to the reporting police officer who showed up that she was unable to retrieve Megan based on the size of Megan and her additional weight. Okay. 911 call reports the same thing. She is tied down with weights, and only the police officers who had a pocket knife could cut off the weights that were strapped to her. Okay. Media reports state the deep end of the pool, which I have not been to, was 13 feet deep. Okay. According to what a police officer was told, they used wire brushes and weights because they didn't have a longer brush to clean the pool. So the city of Deming paid $11,700 for Megan's death. So they also contested her death and had the charges revised. So all of this is linked on our website, but essentially they were charged, they contested it, then they settled on a settlement where they said, we've made a bunch of changes. We shouldn't have to pay the $11,000. We've made changes. They didn't pay the $11,000, okay? But they were charged for having, what did they just say? Did not furnish employment and a place of employment which were free from recognized hazards. Employer allowed employees to tie or strap weights to themselves as anchors while cleaning the bottom of the pool, right? This is the one that even my husband, who's not a pool person, is like, how did this even happen, right? When we think about all three of these cases, many different things had to have happened for this to happen, right? Which is not a great sentence, but we didn't have any of these things happen in isolation. They were precipitated by months or years of inaction in terms of not doing documentation, not doing reports on concerning incidences. So specifically for Megan's case, it appears that supervisors were aware or should have been aware that lifeguards were using these weights to assist them in scrubbing or cleaning the pool. I'm not a scientist, but these are rusty, probably from being in the water, right? How many times were they used in the pool area and then left to prop a door open or left for another use? Who provided guidance to use the weights? How often? Was it based on certain body types? You're a floater, use the weights. They'll help you stay down, right? Why were the guards trying to remediate algae mid-shift? That's the one that gets me. As a pool operator instructor, if you've got algae, that's not a lifeguard issue. That's an operational issue. That didn't occur in the last 20 minutes. That is multiple days of poor water quality management. A big one, this is my speculation, but I'm guessing the walls and floor were slippery. Right? How would you do a retrieval if you can't get your footing, if you can't walk up the slope, if you can't get a big push off? Why didn't they buy them a brush? Right? That's the most obvious one. It's reported that Megan was extremely dedicated to her job, would not be the type of employee to ask questions, right? So do this task, and she goes and does it, right? What is our necessity, speaking as a National Lifeguard instructor and trainer, what is our necessity to practice rescues on different victim types and sizes? I know this is an unpopular one. We don't want injuries to happen in our classes, but how much should we be mismatched with our colleagues to try and see if we could do it, right? There were some other allegations in the news articles you can read on the link. There's allegations of toxic work culture, allegations of other dangerous work conditions. I will say when I pulled up the city of Deming overall violations, not just for the pool, they had violations at many of their work sites, like the shop yard, transportation, other offices had violations. It was not just the pool, right? There was also an allegation of inadequate training, right? We don't know the competency of the person who rescued her. These are some more lifeguard deaths that I'm not able to fit into this short session, but there are more lifeguard deaths, unfortunately, as I was digging into this session. There was an electrocution a few years ago. Lifeguards started their shift by doing some pre-shift checks and was electrocuted. This one is the most upsetting one I found last weekend. Lifeguard was asked to assist with pool operation task, was in the pool and was crushed by a wave machine at a water park that was not locked out. That one was settled for a $97,000 charge. So slightly more, but definitely very concerning. This one is an outdoor situation. Justin Inverso was struck by lightning at a pool that wasn't cleared fast enough. There was no lightning policy to clear the pool. It wasn't followed. And then we could do a whole presentation on suction entrapment. So this one happened in Canada in '92. I have lots of good articles, and the inquest report, she was basically pulled into the transfer pipe to the water slide. Very similar to the entrapment death in Houston a few months ago in Texas. There was a child that died. So the key theme I want to look at to sort of wrap up what we've been talking about is an accident. Those of you who are lifeguards, we know this. An accident or an incident, right? What is foreseeable? What is preventable? What is occurring by chance? None of these things occurred by chance, right? You didn't buy a brush for the lifeguards to clean from the deck. There were weights lying around that people were using. You didn't block off the empty pool, right? You didn't have a communication procedure for lifeguarding alone. All of these things are things that we deal with daily on the job, but we assume that everything is going to work out. So a couple of strategies and then some questions. Okay, so I recognize we are all short-staffed. We don't have enough human bodies. We don't have a big enough budget. Our communities are desperate since the pandemic to come in and use our pools, to use our rec centers. They are demanding. They are insistent. They don't understand when our pool is closed. But one of the things I talk about often when I teach pool operators is if the service cannot be delivered safely, it cannot be offered to you. And if it's not safe, that could be a chemical imbalance, a mechanical issue, a staffing issue. Would you rather send an employee home and lose $50, let's say, of their wages that were not benefiting, like the community or the town did not benefit from those wages adequately? Or would you like to see that person have a WCB claim and be off work for 2, 3, 4 months, heaven help us, a fatality, because you rushed them into a task without a job hazard assessment, a safe work procedure, right? I know that this is a very sensitive topic in terms of staffing levels, and even downstairs, the mayor mentioned, right? We're all trying to do more with less, but we really need to start doing something, right? And I know, speaking for myself as a pool manager, I hated the health and safety stuff. It was dry, it was on the computer. It's not my favorite, believe me. And I know for a lot of you, you're forced to do it because you're not getting the support in your department that you need. But we need to start looking at these cases as a way to have these conversations with our management and leadership, that I really feel this is a bigger issue. If I could find 10 cases in a couple weeks, there's more out there, right? How many are settled in terms of legal NDAs? How many lead to major brain injuries where the family takes the settlement because their employee, their child can't function, can't live without support, and they need that money? So a couple of things I want to remind you as employers and as pool supervisors or rec managers. I hate to go back to basics, but what is our duty of care to provide a safe work environment, right? Is the work environment safe? Can it be delivered safely? Can the pool be open safely? It's a very simple yes or no answer. And I know it can be hard to close the pool and people complain, but literally just saying, I'm sorry, but the pool can't be open, that's it, right? If the pool's not open or the task's not happening, people won't get hurt. What will be our negligence and our liability if we don't meet that standard of care? And it can be in very small steps that you start. That's the key thing we're going to wrap up here with. So if you can, start with 30 minutes over the next 30 days. So literally just, Pomodoro method, 25 minutes, set a timer, put it on your calendar as a repeating task. I'm going to take 30 minutes to look at my organization, my department, my pool, health and safety, whatever you want to narrow in on. The first thing that I always recommend when I'm overwhelmed is I make a list of everything I need to do, but without trying to figure out how I'm going to fix it, what's going to pay for it, who's going to do it. I'm just writing it down. I'm just downloading that. The guards do this thing when they hydrofoam the change rooms, and I'm aware that they do it. I kind of pretend not to know, but we really should fix that. Or we don't have safe work procedures for this new piece of equipment. Or we don't have enough sizes of PPE for different, steel-toed rubber boots for all different sizes. Making a list of all the problems, and that can include a Post-it method, which I'll show you on the next screen. Any change is a positive change. So true story, I was hired by a municipality in British Columbia last year to do an audit, right? Sort of management consulting. Can you look at our org structure? Can you look at our programs, our revenue? Oh, and while you're here, just do some health and safety stuff. So I'm working in the guard office. I go to put my lunch in the fridge, and this is the staff room fridge. So for context, if you're not deep into pools, we've got our condiments, and then up here we've got our chemical testing reagents, which yes, they do need to be stored at the right temperature, but they are also very, very dangerous carcinogens, right? So if we get a leaking bottle that drips into the mustard and somebody eats it, we have a problem. It costs you $100 to get a little dorm fridge, stick it in the mechanical room. All of this can be in there. But the supervisor I spoke to said, oh, we just make sure that the caps are on completely when we get the delivery, right? Small things make a big difference. Small things can pile up, okay? One of the big things I'll mention on the next screen is it doesn't have to be just you. Can you make an anonymous Google form? Can you make an envelope? Can you have people report anonymously concerns that they have in the work site? There are probably things happening when the pool's getting closed in the evening that you're not aware about, different things that could be happening that you haven't done an assessment for. Okay. This is one of the strategies I really like. Bonus points for this person who did it with different colors, but every problem gets a Post-it, right? And we put them on the wall, and it can kind of be overwhelming, but that's the point. When you tell your boss, you tell management, look, we have some issues in the pool area and I need more staff or financial resources to deal with it. This starts to make it a lot more visual than an email, which they may not fully kind of take you seriously. And I've been in the same position as a lot of you, right? You only need 7.2 FTEs to run the pool 7 days a week for 16 hours a day, and you can rely on 16-year-old casual staff. You don't need full-time staff, right? You don't need an increase in your budget because we'll just pay them. There's no pay bumps this year, no COLA, but they're going to stay at your pool. They're not going to go down the road to the pool who's charging more for wages, right? So some strategies to leave you with, right? You have to ask for more money. Right? And I know nobody's going to give you more money. That's what you think. But as soon as you say health and safety, as soon as you pull out some of these news articles, I'm hoping this can be part of the conversation for you. If you can't get more money, asking for more positions, even if it's just temporary contracts. So we have a maternity leave that's ending. Can we extend that person by 2 months? Can we get a secondment from the health and safety department? Can we share a position between public works or operations and aquatics specifically for health and safety? Can we get a small project going, right? I know a lot of organizations in Alberta, when class was going away and people had to switch to ActiveNet or any booking software, they got a 6-month position if they could to say, look, we can't set up a whole software on our own. Give us a 3-month position, a 2-month position, a 6-month position. Start by incorporating a separate safety in-service every month, best case scenario, every 2 or 3 months, worst case scenario. It's not a meeting, it's a workshop. We're gonna do work. We're either gonna hand out procedures to each person and they're gonna handwrite corrections and improvements. Someone's gonna type them later. Or we get into groups and we workshop procedures, hazard assessments from the people who are doing the tasks. We start a rolling process where every month of the year we're getting some improvement and changes happening. And then if possible, maybe we can bill some of those hours to the health and safety department, right? Or other things, okay? Talk to health and safety if you have one. Can they give you some of their budget hours? Can you do some free first aid training in trade, budget transfer between some other hours, right? Talk to a colleague here at the conference or somewhere else in your province about trading for facility audits. I'll come look at your pool, give you a list, you come look at mine. Doesn't make the solutions, but it does identify the problems. What templates can you share from other aquatic individuals? And the big one is you can't do all this yourself. You already have way too much in your portfolio. Like this is, you don't have time. Okay? So one of the biggest things I hear is when I talk in pool operator classes, my boss will not listen. Sorry, my boss will not listen. If you send an email So my mother's a lawyer. She taught me this when I was growing up. If you send an email to the effect of, I want to make it known, or I'd like to put on the record that you stated that we cannot hire more lifeguards to do this because of this. I am stating that the consequence of this inaction will result in this or this or this. Very factual, couple of sentences, no opinions, just sending it. Usually something will happen in my experience. Maybe not the same day, but usually that email will percolate something. If you don't send the email, you just have a conversation, it doesn't always have the same impact. Anytime we talk about violations or closures, that's the big one. Okay. I have 5 minutes, so I just want to quickly run through 3 last slides that I want to show you. If your boss doesn't want to listen, your council doesn't want to listen, they won't give you money, talk about the threat to customers. These next 3 slides are just talking about some customer injuries and fatalities that have happened in the last year or 2. This one happened in Vermont. A child fell through an open spray park tank and died. Lifeguard jumped in after them. They were fined by OSHA for the lifeguard going into the confined space. Thankfully, the lifeguard is okay. But this is a very big bad news story if we talk about leaving tanks unlocked or not inspecting tanks. Another big bad news story last year was American Dream Mall, which is owned by the West Edmonton Mall Company. They had a decorative helicopter fall on top of 5 customers using the pool. They didn't have the right type of installation, the right bolts, the right chain to support this heavy decorative helicopter, right? Customers got hurt. There's probably going to be lawsuits. This one down in Colorado, the entire ductwork system fell down on a new pool at the Gaylord Resort. At least 6 people were critically injured, including lifeguards. Okay. So if they won't listen to our concern for customers, or excuse me, for employees, how can we then frame our concern as impacting customers? Closing the pool, leading to litigation, leading to bad PR, right? Leading to people never coming back to our facility again. Okay, so that was a quick sprint, a lot of information to put into 55 minutes. You can come up, or if you can see it from your seat, scan the QR code. All of the articles, all of the disclosures are available on our website. And thankfully, we will also have on our YouTube channel later in June a copy of this recording. So if you need me to be the big bad consultant with a big C, then you can send them this YouTube or use some of these articles. And I'm happy to send an email. People always asking me about what's going on in the industry. I do a lot of time reading each week, and that's how I come up with a lot of these resources. So we have about 5 minutes. If you do have questions, I'm happy to answer them. So the first one for me is definitely making up work to keep staff busy, right? So speaking from my municipal background, the ratepayers don't want to see the lifeguards sitting around not doing something. They should be cleaning, they should be photocopying. Speaking from my own experience, sending people to do tasks, they're ill-considered, they're not planned, there's no procedure. And so I would rather see somebody send someone home or to another department or just off work, unpaid or paid. You know, we lost the money and next time we're going to have tasks prepared. That's for sure the first one, is making up tasks that they have no skill doing or no competency doing or training to do. That would definitely be the first one. The second one is, I think, having a conversation. We can't keep doing what we're doing in aquatics. We are making do instead of letting our facilities fail. And so I'm a big proponent of, if we have to close the pool for 1 hour a week and council is upset, the mayor is upset, the ratepayers are upset, that is a tough row to hoe, but we have to stop trying to make do with less staff, less budget, less wages. And I know that's a very big ask in this economy with inflation and cost of living is so bad, but your pool can be reduced by 1 or 2 hours a day, or it can be closed 1 day a week on rotation. We cannot keep making it work, because that's where these WCB claims, and I could do a whole presentation or workshop on WCB claims and wages, but those are the first 2 that come to mind. And then I would say the third one is we need to improve our documentation. And I know that for myself, some safe work procedures and hazard assessments, the template in my province of Alberta is kind of annoying and very detailed. So at least coming up with something on the job that is workable. So that is providing education, at least articulating the hazards. What's the pre-job hazard assessment? Even if it's not written down, even if it's just a little workbook, we have to start doing those pre-jobs, in my opinion. The short answer is a lot of health and safety inspectors have not actually gone to pools, in my experience. They will take those reports and they will often pass them to the pool inspector, which is not the same thing, but they're not actually checking up on these things. So speaking as someone that works with these commercial properties, I have seen horrific things in the last 5 years of consulting. I've seen pools that are just, bandaged together with wood. I've seen a pool I was at last year where the working temperature in the mechanical room was 34 Celsius in May, right? I've seen really horrific, we don't need a emergency shower. We don't need an eye wash station. It's not required because they've said to the health inspector, they're using this chemical, but they're actually using this chemical. So I think the long and the short of it, to your question, nobody's getting caught. I've seen enough in Alberta. I can't speak to each maritime province, but they're not getting caught in Alberta until somebody gets hurt. Then all of a sudden they call me and say, oh, we want to do this and this and this and improve all of our documentation because they've paid out who knows in what terms of claim. So I think the best I would recommend is hiring a core auditor or a health and safety auditor voluntarily, if you can, or go through that partnership where auditors are looking for practice on other organizations and see if they'll come in and work with you voluntarily. But a lot of pools are just not getting caught. So that is it for time. If you have questions, I am here. Please feel free to come take a business card. I'll be here until Friday.
It's Katie Crysdale here from Lakeview Aquatic Consultants. Thanks so much for watching this session about lifeguard fatalities in North America. I want to hear from you now. Do you want to hear more information about these cases individually? So I took all the information and I consolidated it into a presentation which covered multiple topics. Would you be interested in seeing individual videos about each case? The reason I ask this is because there's a lot more resources in terms of news articles, inquest reports, freedom of information requests that I did pertaining to these cases, and I wasn't able to put every single detail that I gleaned for every single case in that 1 hour presentation where we covered a number of cases. So I want to check in with all of you and see, is there value in starting a series of videos where we focus each video on each individual case? And then my thinking is that I would be able to incorporate other cases by doing independent videos on some of the other incidents that I was not able to incorporate in this particular session. So there was a case where a lifeguard was hit by lightning at Adventure Island in Tampa, Florida. There was a case where a lifeguard was crushed by a wave machine assisting with routine maintenance at South Padre Island in Texas. Those are cases that are just as valuable as the ones that I mentioned in this presentation. So let me know in the comments if you think I should do some additional individual videos about these other cases. One of the projects I've had long-term is to continue to do these freedom of information requests regarding other drowning fatalities, starting first in Canada, specifically in the province where I live, which is Alberta, and then progressing to other cases that we can learn from. I know for me, I was astounded to discover that in Alberta, which is a pretty small province where I live with only, I think, 5 million people total in population, we've had 5 drowning fatalities on job sites or in the workplace in the last 5 or 6 years. Now, not all of those are aquatics, i.e. lifeguards or swim instructors. Some of those are other trades, so workplace accidents, so heavy industry drownings, drownings involving breaking through ice on a river, drownings involving landscaping, people driving lawnmowers. But I think there's opportunity for us to learn from all of these cases. I know that they interest me, so let me know if they interest you, and I can look at doing some individual videos about all these topics. Thanks so much for being here.